Hello everyone, hope you're all doing well. During the past while we have discussed many different tangents on understanding and learning about our psyche, and hopefully it's been helpful for many different reasons depending on what you're looking for. But in essence, what we are hoping to achieve, what I'm hoping to achieve in producing these videos, is to introduce your psyche to you in a different way that you've been using it or thinking about it or knowing it, which pretty much most of us know nothing about the psyche. We just think the brain is us, which is totally absurd and wrong and scientifically proven. You're not the brain is not you, and definitely you're not thoughts, and thoughts are not you. And thoughts comes from the brain. So if you're not the brain, you can't be the thoughts either. So let's examine through this video to get to know a little bit better, a little bit more about our brain. Look, I try not to cover the stuff that I've covered in the other videos. The brain, by nature, is designed to be paranoid, because it is designed to protect you. To protect you means to look for things. In other words, looking for, if you want to protect an area, what do? You look for that, 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 you check. You scan everything all the time. So pretty much the brain is like a frightened turkey. It's a state of paranoia. So in other words, to begin with, we all know that all people on this earth have one kind of OCD, of many subsets of OCD, at one time or another in their lives. And they have intrusive thoughts of one kind of another in their lives. And the fact that the brain is designed in the paranoia environment, in other words, is programmed to be paranoid all the time. That's how it's been sensitized to take care of you. By being paranoid, I mean its nature is to be scanning, looking for troubles, to save you, to protect you, to do its job. That's an apparatus that is a security system. Now, of course, this has other uses, like you calculate things and learn things and figure out things and use it to design things and solve things and advance yourself and all these other things that you can come up with using the abilities of the brain, and plus all the power that the brain has that we have discussed in other videos, that how it can, help if it's used properly or destroy if it's not understood. So it is designed to protect you. For this protection is constantly looking for things, and for that reason I say it's in the state of paranoia, because it's checking everything and all the time. So to begin with, it's designed to be jumping all over the places and to protect you for that purpose. And brain itself has therefore created an OCD to check things, look for. So to begin with, every brain has a mandate to have an OCD, whether you know it or not, because it has an OCD to protect you, to check for things that could be out of ordinary or something that could need to alarm you about and to make you aware of. So it's constantly looking for any possibility that it's within its mandate to protect you, anything out of the ordinary. And then it makes a big fuss about it and becomes very sensitive about it, and it goes into it further than is necessary. Just showing you, hey, there's a car about to hit you. It goes into, well, there's a car, it's got 4 wheels or 8 wheels, it's got the engine of this kind, and it goes into all that data hunting in order to do a better job in protecting you. And one of the reasons that it does is because brain at the same time is seeking order. And it can only find its order through mechanical processes. Now, if you give it mechanical processes of certain kind, it will use that to have an order, and in that sense, it quiets down. If you don't, it finds and creates its own mechanical process to create an order through what its mandate is, to protect you, to keep checking, looking, creating things that could be possibly of use. And it doesn't really know what could or couldn't be if it cannot find anything. So it just conjures up things just so it can do its job right. But at all times, it needs order. That's why when they do when they use a certain machine to detect and draw the graph of activity of the brain, it will show that when the brain is occupied, like when you give it to do a math problem, the graph shows perfectly smooth and calm. The mind becomes calm because it's find order in the mechanical occupation that is doing math, so it settles down. And it's not jumping around necessarily all the time to find things, because it's now given a mandate, and it finds its security in doing that mechanical process, which brings it an order. Mind looks for order, and it finds it that order in mechanical processes, in being occupied, in doing something. So if you notice, when you're doing something, solving a math problem or building something or focusing passionately on something, carefully to create something, design something, write something, whatever it is that you're fully focused on, it finds order in it, and it's very well behaved. When you don't, it's like a monkey from branch to another branch, because that is all it has been told to do in order to protect you and look out for you. Knowing through inner information when it's healthy and not malfunctioning, knowing what you're all about, including everything about you. Everything you dislike, you like, your gender, your sexual orientation, your preferences, everything. When it's healthy, it knows, and it's looking to alarm you of anything that could be of certain hazard or danger or difference between what your preference or what you're all about and whatever is out there, possibilities. And somewhat we sometimes call that intuition, like when you're in an environment you don't feel right because there is certain energy at work to assess the situation on your behalf, in your favor, to alarm you if there's something wrong. And then you have certain kind of a not a good feeling about a certain area or certain people that you're in close proximity, or you're in communication with, interacting with. So you get certain vibes that are not complementary that are negative, and then some other people, some other environments, you get certain vibes that are, you know, okay, no problems there. And these are all basis of all these awareness and alertness of the system that is at work to protect you. But at all times, brain wants order, and it finds its order when you keep it occupied, give it something to do. That's why when you're doing this stuff, usually your brain is not bothering, you're not jumping from one branch to another, and you're fine. Less intrusive thoughts takes place, if any, because it finds its order through the mechanical process that it's occupied with, you know, doing math, designing something, doing something that is productive and it's of your interest. But at the same time, because it finds its order through mechanical processes, the mechanical processes itself can create a disorder. Why? Because it gets bored of that mechanical process. Then it wants to have a different mechanical process. Like when you're in a relationship, and assuming you're a man watching this and you have a girlfriend, sometimes you and your girlfriend break up for no reason. Pretty much just because you get bored. Why? Because there's no stimulation in the brain through conversation and collaboration in projects or goals and educational, intellectual discussions and bonding on consciousness level. So everything is so mechanical, and mechanical processes eventually can get boring. When the brain gets bored in that relationship because there's no stimulation of intellectual stimulations, then you guys think that there's a limitation here, something that you guys are not finding interesting because the mechanical process of this relationship has become boring. You know, you go here, you have coffee, you go there, you do this, you do that, and then you have intimacy and all that. And then after a while, there is no stimulation on the consciousness level for the, conversations and different topics that you could converse and, expand on together. And therefore, you think that there's some wrong in between you two, and then you separate. Or you come up with things that you pick on each other just because your brain is bored of the mechanical process that you guys have created in that relationship, which has brought about a certain order, and that has become a little bit routine and boring, and then suddenly. And the same thing happens when intrusive thoughts show up. When you are creating your mechanical processes through things that you do and you're occupied with, you're usually fine. Less intrusive thoughts, because everybody in this world, as you know, has intrusive thoughts. There's no ifs and buts about it. And nobody is immune from it. Why? Because the nature of the brain is monkey jumping from one branch to another, from this to that, to alarm you, to aware you. Anything that it can find, and if it doesn't find any hazard, it makes up something, because that's its job. It's supposed to be analyzing every goddamn thing that is there and just making all these thoughts all day long, and many of them are useless to you, but it does what it does. And after, if you're giving it occupation, like you're doing something, okay, usually you're okay and you're relaxed because the brain is finding its security in that mechanical process. But when you're not doing much, that's when most intrusive thoughts hit people, because the brain is not occupied with anything, and now it has no order because it has no mechanical process to do stuff, to be occupied, so there is no order. Now it goes nuts and starts doing what it's designed to do, look for trouble, and if it can't find it, it conjures up whatever that has seeped through its consciousness through different lifestyles, through different information, through different videos and pictures and movies and whatever it says, somehow through publications, through pictorials, advertisements, suggestions, thoughts and conversations of others have seeped through in its memory, in its consciousness. It picks that up and makes some kind of a thought, because that's its job, to make thoughts all day long. 80, 90,000 thoughts a day. And most of them are just nonsense to you and not interesting to you, and they are of intrusive kinds. And everybody on this earth has their share of intrusive thoughts. And when there is OCD involved with it, then it just makes it even worse, because it usually, when intrusive thoughts shows up and people say, okay, that's a bad thought, and then they go about their business, because we discussed about it. The midbrain does its job and shuts down the intrusive thoughts based on knowing what you're all about, your gender, your inclination, your disinterest, and whatever it is, it knows and shuts it down, and then you go on about your business. But when there is a malfunction in the signaling system of the midbrain, of the brain, and there is an OCD involved, it doesn't do its job right, and there is a disorder. That's why it's called OCD. Yeah, a disorder. And then you are supposed to, with your behavior of not paying attention to these intrusive thoughts, to get that message to the certain part of the brain that, hey, I'm not interested in these type of thoughts, and therefore eventually it gets it, shuts it down, reduces it. And if it shows up again, then you know what to do again. By not paying attention to it, it will learn. You rewire your brain through neuroplasticity by your behavior toward these intrusive thoughts, and you will manage it, handle it, because it's not something that you can get rid of. Everybody has intrusive thoughts. It's just a matter of being able to recognize it's part of the function of the brain and let it be, and don't pay attention to it, so you can do your own thing. And it's just part of being a human being. That's all. There's nothing to really focus on it. But when we focus on it, because you become frightened about something that is different here being alerted to you, you think because the brain is conjuring it up, it has come to the brain as a pictorial or an image or a suggestion or a thought, then it must actually have any accuracy to it or any credibility to it. That's the problem. It has no credibility, it has no accuracy, it has no relevancy to you, and you simply think because it's the brain, and thinking brain is you, then you get confused and you associate that with all kinds of other things that is unacceptable or uninvited or uninteresting to you, and you think that, oh, it's a message that it is altering my interest or inclination or gender, and then you get really bothered by it. But the whole idea of it being presented there is because the brain is trying to do its job to show you, hey, I'm alarming you for this or that. And you just say, listen, I don't need alarm. I know who I am, and I don't need to worry about everything that you think is possible out there in the world. I should be, aware of it or worry about it. Just leave me alone. But because the brain doesn't have a constant occupation, and it's got some kind of a existence of it is in the paranoia environment, and is trying to do its job, is constantly going to do what it does. So you need to simply understand this and not interpret it as if it's something about you personally. It's something about the brain. So it is not you that is responsible for all these images and thoughts and so on. It is the brain that is responsible for all these things, and you're not the brain, so therefore you don't have to worry about it. And understand that when the brain is not having a mandate, a job, something it occupied to be busy with, like what it is in this pandemic time, people have lost the rhythm of their lives, the mechanical processes, the things that they used to do. Go to work, see their friends and be occupied at the gym or whatever it is that they like to do, cinema, movies, dates here and there. Then the brain has lost its occupation that it brings it the order and the tranquility hence. Therefore, it is now going back to its nature of monkey branching and come up with all kinds of things that is irrelevant to you, but it's doing it because it has no occupation, as it always did. this pandemic thing has stopped many normal lives of people, and the brains and occupations and the things that you were involved in is not there as it used to be. So the brain is also confused in its own way and is making all these weird thoughts and images and suggestions because it doesn't have its usual occupying business, the usual mechanical process, the usual order, and so it is functioning in a disorder. So in fact, that mechanical process that brings it order, it's because it gets bored when it's normal and it changes to something else, and when it's not normal, like these days with the pandemic and all that, it creates the actual mechanical disorder. So you guys gotta rest assured that you haven't changed, you will never change, because we talked about it, chromosomes and however you've been born, it's not something that's gonna be altered or changed in any way, shape or form, no matter how many millions of times a certain thought shows up in your head. It's just about the fact that the brain is left without the usual occupation and it's lost its order. And for that purpose, if you understand this and focus on it, you will realize that there are more and more people in this time, in this pandemic time, that the orders have been broken and mechanical processes have been interrupted. They find with more intrusive thoughts in their heads. That's because the occupation that they always had in their brain is broken, is interrupted, and therefore the brain has jumped into this monkey branching, and through that is trying to create all kind of thoughts that it really wasn't doing it as much before, even though before the pandemic, intrusive thoughts were all over our brains all the time anyhow. But this is one thing that you should focus on and understand why many of you find intrusive thoughts in your brain, in your heads at this moment, at this time, more than before. It's all because of the whole process of the mechanic process, and the order that was existing in the brain has been interrupted due to what is going on, plus the natural way of the brain function. So my recommendation to you is to be the bigger person between you and the brain. You be the guidance for the brain. Don't think the brain is your guide. It never is. You be the bigger person. You be the leader. You be the judge as you are. The brain works for you, and when it malfunctions, you gotta show it what the right way is. So be the guide to your brain and make it understand that it's being paranoid, that it's producing nonsense, that it shouldn't be. So you will judge what it does rather than taking what it does as if it has any credibility to it. So be the bigger man, be the boss, be the leader, be the teacher, be the guru of your brain, and then help it to understand. And at least if it doesn't understand, at least you understand that what it does is just because of its nature and because of the environment, because of it's not being occupied, because of it's being disturbed, because it's not having its regular order, because it's not having the mechanical process, because it's being bored by the mechanical process in different situations, whether it's a relationship, whether it's intrusive thoughts. By knowing all these things, then you at least would not be affected by being bamboozled or confused about the functions and malfunctions and the type of thoughts and behavior that the dysfunctioning brain happens to be introducing to your life, and you wouldn't be losing your balance or be worried about what is this, because you know what it is, and now you're going to decide that this should simply be where it is and not be paid attention to. That's probably the best way that you can teach your brain how to behave, by your behavior toward its behavior. I thought perhaps it's something that for you can ponder on and enjoy and understand a little bit more about your psyche. And I hope to bring about more discussions of this type in the near future. I'll talk to you soon.